All right, we're recording. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Family Movie Time podcast. I'm your host, Jeff M. Giordano. I'm here with Jade Terrio. Is that the correct way to pronounce your name?
That is. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. Um, just to say a little bit about the podcast and myself. If you were with us last time, we talked about the film Babe on a previous episode. The movie Babe from 1995, the G-rated gem. Today, we go back in time a little bit to 1993 to talk about The Secret Garden. And from my experiences working in special education for 15 years on both the East and West Coast of the US, I've been a filmmaker myself for about 20 years now. And as a film curator, I've been doing that for about 14 years. Over the years, I've shown movies at public libraries, community screenings, film festivals. And I'm really excited to have Jade today. And without further ado, I'll let you introduce yourself, Jade. So you got the mic.
Okay. Uh, Hi, I'm Jade. Friends with Jeff. Happy to be on here. I do stand-up comedy. Also acted in films for the last 10 years. I've made some shorts. I love film. I've dated filmmakers. Just and then they brainwashed me. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this movie. I guess my official plug. I should plug. I'm recording a comedy special and album at Alameda Comedy Club on April 5th and 6th, opening for Amy Silverberg. So if you're interested in that, I can somehow get a link to you somehow. Or if you go on the Alameda Comedy Club website, you'll find it. April 5th and 6th. Okay. That's
And for April 5th and 6th, what time does the event begin?
oh, good you should ask. No, it's there's two shows per night. So first show's at 7 and the second show's at 9:15. And they're both on April 5th and 6th. Two shows a night.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so I sent you a list of movies.
Yes.
The Secret Garden was one of the films you selected from the list of films. What is it? Well, we can start kind of in general and in the spirit of jazz, Sarah Vaughan, Alice Coltrane, both Jimmy Lyons jazz musicians. We can kind of free form the conversation, but I want to start with just why did you pick The Secret Garden?
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of nostalgia for me in that movie. I guess the pink elephant in the room, I don't want to hold that too far away, is that it's definitely a disability movie. It's got a lot of themes around disability, not just physical, but also trauma, childhood abandonment, all those very lighthearted topics. And it was a movie that my grandmother showed me quite often when I was young, which was also very interesting. And I was close to my grandmother, and she had just like a set of movies that she just loved, and she showed me, and I loved, and we just watched them over and over again. And the Secret Garden, both this version and the 1982 version, I think it was 19, that sometimes I would catch that one on TV, so I was pretty familiar with both. Um, and not to go too far into it, but I think it also, I had a good relationship with my grandmother, but there was some disability kind of disconnect aspects that I felt like she didn't properly understand. And then rewatching this movie, I'm like, did this film inform some of her views, or like, did it inform some of my views? I don't know. So I have a lot of thoughts on this movie. Yeah.
And for my research, the first version of the movie was from 1919.
Yeah, there's a
That version is unfortunately up till this moment believed to be lost.
yeah,
And then there was a 1949 version, and then it seems like
there's a book
the
called
book um, was from 1911 is when the book came out, and then you mentioned the 1982 film version, right?
yeah, that was I believe a Hallmark directed TV, but it had Colin Firth in it and some other names, so it was kind of interesting.
Or is it
Uh,
maybe 1987? Jenny James, Barrett
that
Oliver,
sounds right. 1987. That might be correct.
and then it says 2020 there was another film version.
I have not seen it. I was curious.
I've
Yeah,
honestly only seen the 1993 version.
yeah. The
Um,
the 19. Oh, are we spoiling in this? I'm assuming spoilers are.
I think I would hope people have seen the film. We could say that we might talk about some spoilers. So maybe people, if they haven't seen the movie, pause
Yeah.
pause this video and then go watch the movie and then come back and then watch the rest of our conversation. But you can say what you would like. Go ahead. What you were thinking.
Well, I was just gonna say in the 1987, it was 1987 version. There is a romance, like a kissing cousins situation. So the two cousins eventually fall in love and get married. But in the 93 version, they kind of they were hinting at maybe some attraction or jealousy, but because there's like a love triangle thing going on too. But it's much more subtle in the 93 version, and they don't go as far as them getting married. There's just maybe some tension. But that's the 87 version ends with like a proposal and all that stuff.
Wow, interesting. What really took me, I mean, my immediate, I think I had seen the film a few years ago, and then watching it earlier today, I was struck by just the like mysterious tone and the you have like the sound design with the echoes of like the children's voices or the crying and the wind and the rustling of the leaves and the way the lighting is very moody and mysterious. I mean the mood just kind of pulls you in and the pacing is like some of the best pacing for the rhythm of the way the film moves forward. It doesn't really ever like, drag down or really slow down where you're like bored. I never felt like that watching it again today.
Yeah, I would note about the pacing. Um, yeah, I definitely don't think it was too slow. Like it moved. It was a very quick moving movie. There's arc after arc after arc. But not arc, but pivot after pivot. But the I did think they could have focused on the relationship development between the three kids. I mean, if I'm being a critic, so pacing wise, I'm just like, oh, he goes into the garden the first time he's there, he can walk. It's like, but yeah, the echoes, the sounds, it's beautiful fucking soundtrack. I mean, man, I love that soundtrack. Um, yeah, yeah,
The even the song more about kind of the sounds, the music. We have like the string, classical piano music, choir music. The end credits, there's a song by Linda Ronstadt called, I think, Winter Light, which almost sounds like a Kate Bush,
yeah.
or Cocteau Twins kind of vibe to it.
And then the Indian folk music and the Indian kind of intro, that's so cool.
Yes, I mean those early scenes in India, they're also very well done, and the
Yeah,
earthquake, the earthquake scene that kind of sets off,
yeah,
the reason why Mary moves to England or Yorkshire to begin with. So
yeah.
yeah, the setup in the music, the sounds quite, I think they did it right.
It's funny the sounds, especially of the crying in the manor. that was so funny because this whole rewatching this film. I mean, obviously, it's so interesting watching it as an adult versus as a child because your brain does completely different things and understands way more. And I'm watching it as a kid is like a whole nother lens. Um, but as an adult, I'm realizing how much of a comedy this is almost like the guys wailing. They're like, "Oh, don't worry, it's just the wind." It's obviously a screaming child. Uh, they're running to his room like it's an emergency. When every time, then when the father there's like very far removed, distant father who's just like stricken with grief and can't look at his children. He comes home and then the maid is so beside herself. She's like, "I'll just fire myself. It's fine. I resign. I resign." It's like it's almost a comedy to me in a lot of ways. Like just how just the exaggerated reactions of every character.
And
Very
I think another thing to mention is like, I'd be curious your answer to the question, like, how long is childhood usually? Like, how would you describe the length of childhood or the amount of years of childhood?
well, in that time of day, it was 0 to 14. Nope. And then you get married to your cousin. No, uh, no, I don't. There is two answers to that question, I think, because if you're talking about childhood in the context of that era versus childhood now, um, I don't know. I mean, I might, I could give you an answer like, yeah, you stop getting raised after you're 16 or 18, but it's like, I think the question almost isn't when is childhood over? It's almost like, when do people get abandoned? And when does that, because we all get abandoned, right? I mean, 18, you move out, or maybe abandoned is not the right word if you choose to leave, but like, we all get separated from our parents at some point. So the question is, when is it traumatic?
Or maybe the by statistics or the odds, usually children outlive their parents, and that feeling of abandonment or that feeling of like, whoa, now I'm on my own or independent, or
Yeah,
it's I have more responsibility now to like live my life. Like, less people are like taking care of me.
yeah, yeah. And Mary in the movie had the special privilege of never seeming to have her parents. Her parents died, and before they died, they were absent, mess up parents, So, uh, you know what this movie reminded me? I mean, there's so much in this film. Like they're both cousins, severely abandoned. One of them is almost like a feral child because her parents basically didn't raise her. So she's rude, she's, quiet, she doesn't cry, she's like a old sociopath. And the other one is basically Gypsy Rose. I mean, it's like I feel like there's a little bit of a Munchausen by proxy situation going on, which is such an interesting layer in the movie, especially as a disability movie. But yeah, they're both feral children in a way.
And even the adults, you can tell it seems like they have challenges with expressing their emotions in a really, you know, uh, talking to like communicating in a way where they're like really being open or
Yeah, well,
honest.
everyone in that movie needs therapy. Like,
It's a
don't
good
you?
point.
If you ever want to kill a movie, put a therapist in it.
Yeah, it's the vibe is, yeah, there's been people who are a little bit lost or confused or sad. There's a certain mood that a lot of the
Hmm.
adults carry around. I think the one
I,
character, I think her, is it Martha? She tries to help Mary when she first arrives. She seems like one of the more innocent, like she has that like curiosity and like openness compared to a lot of the other characters. What do you think about Martha?
oh yeah, I mean Martha, yeah, you know what, Martha and Mary have an interesting juxtaposition. They're yin and yang. Mary is upper class, Martha is lower class. Um, Mary is supposedly well read since she's upper class, but although she is well read, she often doesn't get Martha's jokes. So then there's like, kind of a who's smarter situation. Martha is definitely a little older than Mary, so she's wiser. And Martha has her mother, which is something that I think is kind of talked about when Martha gives Mary kind of like a jump rope. And she's like, oh yeah, my mom gave this to me. And I was reading a little bit about the book last night, but I guess Martha's mom is more of a central character in the book, but the fact that Martha mentioned her mother is, I think, kind of shows a big difference between them.
And do you remember what age you were when you first saw The Secret Garden?
Oh God, I could have been anywhere from 6, 7, maybe even younger. Like my grandmother kind of raised me. So that movie, I've watched that movie several times at least. Probably around the age of the kids in the movie. Yeah.
What other films could I ask you, would you say were part of your childhood or in the orbit of your
Yeah.
childhood?
Thinking about these movies that my grandmother showed me. Thumbelina, definitely. I watched Thumbelina like on repeat. That movie never stopped. Um, why am I'm like blanking. It's been so long. Like my early childhood, I didn't there was that movie, Secret Garden, fuck. Pocahontas, all the Disney movies. Um, uh, you know what? There's more. That's why I don't want to leave this question. But
It's okay.
um, you shove childhood down. That's
And it's on the topic of, I don't want to shy away from the topic of disability. And I know in your comedy, it's part of your comedy, it's part of your life. Um, what other films would you say in general, are depictions of disability that people should see? Is there any other movies kind of in general that come to mind?
Oh God, there's so many movies in general. The first movie that comes to mind, and I don't even know if it's a film people should. I think it's a great film. Like Skins. There's this movie called Skins. That's a Spanish film. That I'm hesitant because I don't know if the filmmaker is disabled, and there's that big debate of do you separate the artist from the work type of thing. But that's a really interesting movie about disability. Crip Camp just won an Oscar. That's a documentary. That's a great film. Um, Other disability movies. God, I spent all morning thinking about Secret Garden. I'm like, my brain is like, there's other movies? No, it's okay.
And the
Uh,
film Skins, it looks like 2017, Eduardo Casanova. That's when it came out, 2017.
yeah. Oh, The Surrogate's another neat disability film. I don't we usually support films that where it's like the actor himself is not disabled, but we don't have a lot of examples of it. Um, but uh, but I mean, we don't have a lot of examples with authentic casting. But I feel like I'm irresponsibly leaving out some things that are authentic. But Skins is a great film. That's kind of a that there is some authentic casting in that film, and that kind of shows oh, that reminded me of another movie with authentic casting, Under the Skin, similar title, but definitely it's got some disability representation. But Skins is kind of like an anthology in a way, so it just kind of touches on different stories that don't necessarily connect, but they can. So that's a good one.
Did you see the Peanut Butter Falcon from I think 2019?
Oh no, I haven't.
That's an interesting one.
Down.
I'd be curious, yeah, if you do get to see that, let me know what you think of that one.
Okay, Peanut Butter Falcon, absolutely.
It's got Shia LaBeouf and the the actor that it's like a kind of a buddy movie, adventure movie. Shia LaBeouf's character befriends a man with Down syndrome, and
Yeah.
they kind of go on this adventure together, and it's like in the countryside, and um, yeah,
Oh, cool.
it's like a comedy, but there's drama. It's a good balance of different elements.
Yeah, that sounds good. I've been thinking about other disability representation. I've been thinking of TV series. Like everyone knows Breaking Bad. That I have funny opinions about that one. I think I think RJ Mint is a great actor. I think that sadly he got a bad character right. I think that's the most boring character in the whole show. Which is kind of funny because there's like a catch-22 where people don't want the disabled characters to be too interesting because then you're othering them, but they don't want them to be too boring because then they're boring. I don't know. But that's another trying to think what else. Anyway.
Have you ever written screenplays or like short stories yourself that could be movies one day?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have several scripts and I've made some shorts and yeah, I think I like including disability as a I think it's interesting to find ways to not have it be a motif and have it be just a coincidence and have it be a motif and a coincidence. Um, like in Don't Mess with the Zohan, that was interesting because the receptionist was disabled and that was authentic casting. Um, but it was coincidental. It wasn't a motif or it wasn't a theme. Um, but so I'd like to do something like that. I'd like to do both. I want to do something thematic and not thematic. I want to play with both of those.
What about a film version of your life? Did you ever consider
Uh,
that?
yeah, maybe not of my life to a T. I think there's a lot of things in my life and experiences and relationships that I draw inspiration from, like very directly. So ideally, I would like to build a character that some things are changed just for its creative integrity, kind of. But in all in all, you know, it'd be inspired by me. Or it'd be neat to, another thing I'd love to do is if I like were to write a script that were inspired by some of my life experiences, I would love to cast somebody else, but I'd love to maybe be involved as a side character as well. You know what I mean? Because I don't think, like, I have a story, but I don't necessarily think my story is that you don't have to separate it from other people's stories. Do you know what I mean? Like there's plenty of people who are in similar positions as me that I know in real life that I think there's a common theme there. So
Can you, if you want to, could you describe your disability? Talk a little more about that?
yeah, I have a motor neuron disability, so I just have trouble with mobility, and I use a wheelchair and a lot of other gadgets. I'm a cyborg. Yeah.
I think too, like there's also a potential if there was a film or a TV series about your life, it could even be in like a hybrid style. You could have things that were documentary, like a documentary layer, and then like a scripted layer with actors playing as you, different points in your life.
Yeah, I toyed with it. I definitely don't want to be too confessional, but it is something I thought of. I think if I were to go the route of pursuing a series or something, though, it would definitely have a more fictional element. I think that would be a safe distance for me. Yeah.
What do you think it is in terms of comedy that what do you think it is in terms of comedy that you feel comfortable doing comedy more than other artistic expressions or artistic creative activities?
Like like why comedy?
Yeah, why comedy over music or over film acting or
Yeah.
performing on the stage in other ways?
Well, so for music, uh, I have a musical background. And I was in choir in school. My dad's been in a lot of bands, and music has always been attractive to me. Um, but it was difficult for two reasons. One, I'm bad at math, and you kind of if you're trying to learn music, it's good to know a little math. And two, um, I at the time when I was in high school and I was trying to I knew I was gonna work creatively in some capacity. Um, Music seemed inaccessible because you have to, physically play an instrument. And it's kind of a bummer because I would, if I maybe if I had more passion for it at the time, like a little more, I would have found a workaround because, in this day and age, anyone can make music now. You don't even have to be able to play an instrument. But I think back then I was surrounded by the marching band and my dad's band. In my mind, the only way you could play music is if you could pick up a guitar, and I just wasn't motivated to troubleshoot that at the time. And then the other thing, I guess with film, um, I always had kind of a weird fear of watching movies. Like I didn't like gore. I didn't like edgy things. It was uncomfortable for me. And then when I got to college, I started meeting more people and enjoying film through the people I met. But by that time, I'd already been in comedy. I already kind of had momentum in that one art form. So the acting and everything, and I still act. I act. I mean, I got cast in two movies this year. I was in your movie. That wasn't acting. That was more documentary, but definitely artistic. Um, so I still consider myself pretty heavily involved with film. Um, but uh. But yeah, stand up is the most accessible. Um, yeah, it's a lot. Even with acting, you have to, if you're disabled, you're limited and you have to really prove yourself to some casting directors and be like, hey, you sure? You don't want someone that looks like me? So there's that. But anyone can do stand up. Um, yeah, I mean, my friend thought it would be profitable, so he told me to get into it. He was very wrong. Uh, but once you're in, it's really hard to get out. Like a
I
cult.
I I feel like with regarding stand-up comedy, I think everybody at one point in their life for at least one time should do like an open mic, like a 5 minute, just get up there. I think it's just good to experience that.
Yeah, or like poetry or something. I did write poetry also when I was in high school, but I never performed it because I didn't. It wasn't funny. But But yeah, poetry, I think anything, it's good to get on stage. It feels good if you can get over the fear. Um, yeah, I just think everyone should have a creative outlet in
Well, and I
something.
think, you know, as far as young people, kids, children, young adults, seems like more and more having a creative outlet, an artistic way to express is important, you know, in life. It does, I think, help people cope and process, even on a subconscious level. You're drawing from all these experiences and thoughts, desires, fears. You know, it's I think it's one of those human tools that we have that you know we can kind of utilize, almost like exercise. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not to harken back to our theme, but I just thought the kids in the movie in the Secret Garden, like they all came alive when they were tending to a garden, when they were choosing which flowers to go where and having this creative outlet. Um, that kind of brought everyone back.
And being around some wildlife or livestock, you have the robin that's kind of guiding, you know, Mary to find the entrance for the secret garden, and she
Yeah.
somehow finds the key in the
Yeah.
huge manor estate.
Oh yeah, that's part of the comical element too. Just all the woodland critters and the crow that you carry around. Yeah.
Yeah, the
It's
crow on his shoulder, on the boy's shoulder.
that movie did a great job because I had one more thing to say about it. I was thinking about like because I said earlier, watching it as a kid is a different lens than as an adult. And Jeff, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when you were a kid, did you ever like go to the top of a mountain and feel like you were really high up, but when you come back and as an adult, it's not that high up?
Yeah,
Like,
I could mention quickly.
yeah,
Growing up on the East Coast as a kid, in the wintertime, there'd be a lot of snowstorms, blizzards, and there were these hills in my neighborhood, and I would go sledding. And I
yeah,
remember like going to the biggest hill and sledding down that thing
yeah.
was like a little scary, but it was exciting. And then as an adult, like looking at these hills, it's like that's really not that big of a hill.
Yeah, yeah, that's well, so, and I felt that way about a hill in an old park of mine, and I felt like I was on a damn skyscraper, and then when I came back as an adult, I was like, this is nothing. But in the same vein as that movie, when I watched it as a kid, my memory told me that that garden, when they went into it, it was actually magical. Like it was fantastical. Like there was not, it wasn't just your average garden that was closed off. Like in my childhood brain, it had magic to it. It made that little guy get out of his wheelchair and walk when the reality it was probably just the vitamin D. But like it was weird rewatching it because then I was like, wait, this is really just a normal garden. Like adults rationalize everything. So yeah, I've
And
had,
regarding the garden, just reading about the movie, the making of the production design. The production designer was Stuart Craig for the garden, especially, and it was built from scratch to avoid any logistical nightmares of crowd control
oh,
that would
wow,
have been required for like a complicated summertime or winter, you know,
okay,
photographing in an existing garden.
gotcha. There you go.
Yeah. Some other trivia. There's in the book you have Mary's father is related to Colin's mother,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
and also they were not twins. And in the original book and earlier versions of the movie, as well as the Broadway musical version, the parents of Mary died during a cholera epidemic.
yeah, yeah. I read that too. They were for the film. They did an earthquake to make it easier to kind of explain. Um, It's funny about the parents, the moms being twins, because really what all the parents in that movie have a problem with is they love their spouse more than their kids.
Wow.
Like, Like Mary's parents loved each other. They went and partied and neglected her. The dad of Lord Craven, the cripple. That's, he loved his wife so much that when she died in childbirth, he locked their kid away in a room for 10 years. Like,
Yeah, it's I mean, I think too there's something to be said for like when people are that isolated, you know, it's kind of up to the parents or the guardians to still find ways to at least engage like the kid's mind or, you know, find things so they're not just kind of like vegging out all the time or just doing like nothing, you know.
it's a, and you know what? It's a disability film in that sense as well, in that, like, there's a common, uh, and this is what I said when I was always worried that my grandmother kind of had, like, maybe not kosher views on disability, and maybe it was reflected in her wanting to show me this film all the time. But it was like, this idea of your kid is born disabled, or in Lord Craven's Grace, maybe he was a sickly child, you know, those are sickly, it's all very ambiguous, but he's sickly. Um, then the parents will shelter their kid and assume that they're gonna die young, and then not uh bring them into the real world and have them live up to their potential. And that's a theme in disability life. And so many kids, I mean, I could tell so many stories of kids I know, both in the news and in real life, who are just pretty much Rapunzeled because their parents are either overprotective or don't give a shit and think that this is a waste of a child, basically. Uh, So, yeah.
With
Awesome.
the topic of death, since it is part of the movie, you know, she loses her parents in this earthquake in India. I mean, I kind of resonated because I lost my father as a teenager. Um, and then just, you know, a mortality in general, like how have you grappled with that or, you know, what have you what have been your thoughts on that like throughout your life as far as health and ability and
No, that's a great question. It's definitely evolved on my thoughts on it over time. My condition, so I have something called spinal muscular atrophy, and there is there is like the internet will say our life expectancy is less, but there's no number. It's not like, oh, you're gonna die when you're 20, or, I know people who lived well into old age with this condition and fathered and mothered children and all that. But yeah, definitely thought about death. Um, I was a sickly child, and so I was in and out of the hospital a lot. Um, it was a fear in the sense that I wasn't scared of it in the moments that I was ill. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. It was more in the moments that I was well, that I was scared of it, like when things were going well. Um, because, there's the unknown. You don't know what's gonna happen. There's death anxiety. Humans like to be in control, and when you're not in control, um, then I wish I knew this title of this book I read that kind of changed my life about death, and can't even tell you the beginning of it anyway. It will come to me, but this idea that, just being mortal, we kind of have to rationalize this idea of death, or else we will go crazy. That's and that's where religion and everything comes in. But yeah, so I guess my feelings around death have sobered up over time. I don't have anxiety about it in the sense that it's gonna happen to me, and I don't know what's gonna come after. The after part isn't what I'm afraid of. Um, I would be afraid that if I died, my family would be, you know, upset, obviously. Um, and and it would hurt. There would be pain. Um, Maybe things that I could have done and now I don't get to do because I'm dead. So those are kind of the fears now, whereas before it was just like, oh, what happens after you die? I don't know. Scary. Um, Definitely afraid of my parents dying. They're getting older, and our grandparents just died. So it's like when the grandparents die, then the parents are next, and then after the parents, you're next. You know, so it's like okay, here we go on the assembly line.
Yeah, in the movie, there's so many, serious life topics it manages to include within only about an hour, 37-minute film.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
I thought it was funny when he said, "Yeah, we're just picking some lighthearted, G-rated movies, no violence, but child abandonment, dead mothers, cripples."
I mean, the movie, it still feels relevant. I think if you were to show that to a young person, um, hopefully they wouldn't be like traumatized by the movie. They would maybe already have some conception of mortality or sickness or these kind of like things like earthquakes. Like, what do you think? What would be the appropriate age for a parent or guardian, older relative, to show a kid The Secret Garden? Like, how when would you show a kid that movie? At what age would they need to be?
I don't know. I think well, I don't know if I'd show any kid that movie. Only because, come here, I mean, I'd never say never. I shouldn't say that. I think that for me personally, and we're not talking about the 90s, we're talking about this day and age, I would want to explain maybe the disability politics to a kid more. Um, and I would want the kid to be old enough to understand that. So a mature 9, I don't know, like I don't know. But I don't think there's any harm in showing. I just think there is harm, at least from a disability perspective. The movie does kind of have a you can pray the cripple away tone. You know what I mean? Oh, you can't walk. All you need is some fresh air. You know. Um, and that movie maybe suggests that, and that's what I was talking about. My grandmother's maybe kind of antiquated notions, but I don't know that if that's exactly what the film is saying, especially if you throw in the Munchausen's by proxy theory, which the movie leaves it ambiguous. Like the movie leaves it ambiguous what the kid's disability is, and it suggests that he never had one, that his father was so grief stricken that he didn't want anything to happen to his child, so he told Medlock, the the wet nurse or whatever, to lock him in this room. Don't let anything bad happen to him. Keep him in the bed. He's sickly. Maybe he was a sickly child, but obviously he can run and frolic. He's fine. So um, that throws a complicated wrench into the film that if you're trying to talk to a child about what's happening in the movie, it's difficult to. But I don't think I think it's age appropriate. The simple answer, I don't think it's a inappropriate film. But personally, if I was my kid, I would want them going in with a nuanced understanding. So.
To share some more trivia about the movie, the actress Kate Maberly, who was Mary in the film, she had no acting experience.
Nice.
And she only auditioned for Mary because of a netball game she was meant to play that got called off that day.
Oh, cool.
And it was reported that her natural shyness and seriousness made her suit the role. And the fact that she had no training helped her come across more naturally on the camera.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's great. I love that.
She was 8 when she auditioned, and basically a year younger than the character Mary is supposed to be. But by the time of the filming, she had turned 9 years old.
Yeah, she did seem a little young. I do think the best actors are non-actors, with the exception of the E.T. kid. He's incredible.
When you look at when we consider when we look at family friendly movies nowadays in contemporary times, what are your thoughts about the kind of movies you hear about or people tell you about or you see something?
Yeah, I wish I watched more of them. I guess I mean the most recent family-friendly movie I watched was Moana. I thought that was kind of nice. That made me cry because of the dead grandmother. I have some dead grandmother sensitivities there. But that was a that was a good film. Thought the music was good. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a deep analysis of. I think I could say the answer that I think maybe everyone's on everyone's mind. I think we are straying into the era of maybe political correctness or diversifying, which some people may call tokenizing, depending on how you're doing it. Um, Trying to have representation of as many groups of people as possible without seeming like they're pandering to, something specific, I guess, is the way to look at it. Um, I'm not saying that movies do that, uh, like some do, but I think the best movies to come out will be the ones who have diverse representation, but also have nuanced moralities and characters with depth. Uh, and I don't know how that would translate into a family-friendly movie or a kids movie. I think you should definitely try to have depth and character, but especially for things that are targeting young children, sometimes you want to simplify things. So I don't know. Yeah.
And I think too these days, like it seems like a lot of the family friendly or children's films are usually animated and not live action. That
Right.
seems to be the trend or the pattern today.
Absolutely. And I love animation. I mean, one of my favorite animated films is Chicken Run. I think that's a great family movie. Um, uh, a lot of Pixar movies coming out that look at that movie. It's about all the moods are all different colored entities
Inside Out.
running around. No, it is out. It's out. Maybe it's called Inside Out. That sounds familiar. I could be wrong, but but I like the B movie with Seinfeld. That's hilarious. Storks, Storks is a great um kind of. I like Storks. That's a family-friendly movie. It's about storks who bring babies. Um, but I think the comedy in that is really good. They do not skip on the jokes. Um, so I like that one. Uh,
Looking at the year The Secret Garden was released in theaters, 1993, there was another movie also released in 1993 called Jurassic Park.
oh yeah, I saw that later in life. Yeah, I like Jurassic Park. I did that was on the list too. Doesn't that have violence? There's definitely violence in
There
that.
is I mean, I guess I think I included it because it's more like, animatronic creatures.
Yeah,
It's
nobody
kind of
gets hurt. Yeah.
a little bit, maybe more tame in some ways, not as intense.
That's true. There's no like blood being squirted out of anyone's body or anything. That's sad. Yeah, I like Jurassic Park. That's a great film. I don't remember too much. I saw it like several years ago. I wasn't like impacted in like a visceral way, but I was enjoying it. Another movie I just thought of in my childhood that I watched on repeat all the time with my grandmother. This is why I movie. Indian in the Cupboard. You seen Indian in the Cupboard?
Yeah, it's been a long time. I remember that one.
Yeah, that's a great film. A little violence in that one, but it's I don't know if it would count. The cowboy gets shot, but
And what do you feel like when you saw it as a kid, or when you think about it, what did you take away or learn from that movie, Indian in the Cupboard?
um, I guess I took away the kind of in your face moral of the story of that movie, which is don't mess with things you don't understand, you know? Don't don't change the natural order of the universe. Don't rip people out of their time periods. Don't mess with time and all that. That's not really a time travel movie, but it kind of is. It kind of is in a sense, but it's more of a fantasy toys come to life movie, I guess.
The want to mention the director of The Secret Garden, Agnieszka Holland.
Mm.
Um, has a really interesting career of films. A lot of them are probably rated R, but very artistic, creative films. And like,
Yeah.
a long career of movies. I think there's a film, I'm trying to see if Holland directed many children's or family friendly movies. There's a movie called Sunday Children, 1977. It was a TV movie.
Hmm.
Um, a middle aged couple is without a child after 2 years of marriage. So they decide to adopt a child.
Mm.
So it kind of deals with them wanting to start a family. That's, I think,
Yeah.
one of the other films. A lot of Agnieszka's other movies are, yeah, probably rated R. Um,
For one foray into children's.
it looks like she did 2 episodes, directed 2 episodes for Rosemary's Baby, the 2014 TV series.
Oh, okay.
Um, and Emma, the TV series, looks like that's an upcoming TV series that looks like 6 episodes. Um,
Okay.
she directed for that. I think that her famous, maybe most famous film is called Europa from 1990. That might have helped her to get the directing job for The Secret Garden. Um, it's about a boy in Germany, um, like during the, World War II, pre-World War II years, a historical drama.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
She's going strong. Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else Secret Garden related, or
We're related at all.
yeah, I'm looking at my notes. Let's see. Learning to laugh and learning to cry. That's a line towards
Oh,
the
yeah.
end of the film. What do you think about those lines?
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about those lines too much. Yeah, I think, yeah, the fact that, yeah, the uncle was learning to laugh and find joy again. I think it was both, it's just kind of signifying how both the children and the adults were separated from each other, and as a result, were separated from themselves. So like they couldn't feel, they were numb, they were either grief stricken or traumatized or just abandoned or they were both everyone was abandoned. Everyone was abandoned in that movie. The uncle abandoned by his dead wife, the children abandoned by the uncle and by their parents. you know. Even the nurse worried that she'd be abandoned from her job if she fucked up, you know. Like there's just all these attachments going on, and I think that line at the end kind of shows like everyone needs each other, you know, in order to feel anything. Um, so that's kind of what I got from it.
Do you think
And
it's important for people to cry sometimes, to not go too long or too many years without crying, even if it's a happy cry?
I would hope so. I mean, I think the crying is a natural human thing. And it'd be good to have a life that, you hope it's happy tears, you would hope that you have more of those moments, but if something comes up where you're feeling this type of way, crying can be a release, um, that can make you feel better, and I think a lot of people don't know that, or they're afraid to show it because it's a sign of weakness, you know. I think you should cry if you feel it, if you feel safe to do so.
I want to mention too the cinematographer for Secret Garden, one of
Yeah.
the best, probably all time. Just looking at kind of going backwards from Roger Deakins' filmography as cinematographer, um, 1917, Blade Runner 2049, Hail Caesar, Sicario, Unbroken, Skyfall, the James Bond movie, Rango, um, A Serious Man. It's a Coen Brothers movie, Revolutionary Road,
Yeah.
um, No Country for Old Men,
Yeah, you did all of them. Nope.
House of Sand and Fog, Intolerable Cruelty, A Beautiful Mind. What do you think of A Beautiful Mind since he photographed that movie?
I have seen. Wait, remind me that is that about the autistic guy? What is that?
So, mathematical genius John Nash, um, and
Right.
Russell Crowe plays as John Nash. It's a Ron Howard directed movie. Jennifer Connelly's in it. Ed Harris also.
I saw the one. I saw the Rain Man. That's a different one. I haven't seen A Beautiful Mind. I I feel like I should have because it's a classic, and I really should have seen it, but I have not seen it.
What do you think of Rain Man since you mentioned that one?
Is that the one? What's the one? Not with Leo, where he's a mathematical genius. Is that also Rain Man?
Rain Man is Dustin Hoffman, Tom Cruise. He goes to like the
Oh, yeah.
casino and he knows how to kind of, play the card games better than other people, basically. And
Yeah, I don't. I feel like yeah, I've definitely seen it. I just don't remember it because to me, on the surface level, it was so tropey. Savant is a genius, but I feel like if I gave it another watch, I would have a better analysis. But my first impression, I get tired of tropes. Um, I like the trope. God, I'm such a stoner. I'm forgetting every name of everything. Do you know the movie with I think it was with Dakota Fanning about the guy who was mentally disabled, but he was a father. It had the guy who was in Milk. The guy who played Milk was in that movie. Um,
you know about what year it might have came out? I Am Sam
yeah, that one.
with Sean Penn, right?
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2001.
I thought that was interesting because it puts someone with a mental disability in a non-typical role, and I liked that a lot. I thought that was great. Like, there was no savantism, there was no, and there was naivete, but it was like it was just it's a situation you don't see very often because there's a stereotype that mentally disabled people don't have consensual sex. Um, and in that movie, from my understanding, it was consensual sex. And he fathered the child. That's the other stereotype. The people don't believe disabled people can have children, or raise children. And he raised her through half of the movie. So it was like until things got complicated. So I really like that film a lot.
Another one I just thought of, another kind of similar movie, What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
Oh yeah.
What do you think of that one?
Oh God, I did kind of watch that kind of recently. Um, I mean, fantastic performance by Johnny Depp and Leo, young Leo. Um, yeah, I mean, again, all these movies have the same thing in common in that there's no authentic casting, except for I Am Sam. Actually, did have authentic casting in that movie, just not the protagonist. But yeah, I mean, What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Despite that, I thought I don't know. I thought that the disabled character, I didn't fully understand his function in the movie in a meaningful way, other than to showcase that it was a maybe a vulnerable family um, with some struggles. I I definitely added some depth to the movie, like it made it more interesting. Um, the older brother had more responsibilities other than just his mom. He had his mom and his disabled brother. But I didn't. It was hard for me to see anything innovative in it. If that makes sense.
I think too, there's a lot of films on the topic of like aging into disability, like as a elderly person or as a person just gets older as an adult. Um, any
Yeah.
thoughts on that idea?
Um, Up is a good example of that. Uh, Another good example is the Gran Torino in a weird way. That's a good example of that.
The Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Don't Breathe. I think is a good example of aging and disability. Um, and and also that new movie, The Whale. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it, but I know the premise. So that
With
might,
Brendan Fraser?
yeah. And he doesn't play an old guy, but he plays someone who gained a large amount of weight over time. So he acquired this condition as a result of, again, I haven't seen the movie, I can only guess. But it's still this idea that, because I don't think age and disability is as relevant as the idea that we will all become disabled. It's just a matter of when. Like you could become disabled tomorrow or right now. Something could happen. Um, and and I think in acknowledging that it will happen, like that you're not escaping it, or you because either you die or you get disabled and then you die. So yeah,
I thought of another one, I think related to the topic, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
The guy learns to communicate with his eyes, like when he blinks, because he can't speak.
Yeah,
Um, that one is interesting. I think it's based on a book too, based on the real person's experiences.
yeah. I'll have to look that one up. I've heard of it. Another one I want to see that just saying all these movies I want to see but I haven't seen. He Won't Get Far on Foot. It's about it's about the real life of a cartoonist, um, who is quadriplegic. Um, so I think that seems pretty interesting to me. He was also like had some activist kind of roots and things like that. Um,
And you said it's called You Won't Get Far on Foot?
he won't get far on foot. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a funny disability film that I actually kind of hate. but I feel like it's a worth mentioning. I mean, okay, there's so many disability films I hate that I hate so much I don't even want to mention them. And a lot of people know about them. But one that I particularly hate that's worth mentioning, it's a short film starring Michael Cera, and it's called Gregory Go Boom. And I don't, if someone can ever explain that film to me, like what it's trying to do. Since it's a short film, I could give away what happens, but it's a short film. You should just go watch it. But it's definitely some contrarian messages that I definitely not inspirational. It's quite the opposite. I don't understand its function, but that's an important disability film, I think.
And it's a short film, you said, with Michael Cera.
Yeah, it's probably found on YouTube. Um,
I don't think
it
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, definitely no authentic casting.
Wow.
Which one of the reasons I hate it, and you'll see why, because the messages that it's portraying, I'm just like, I need a disabled perspective on this, and everything like that. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting film. Yeah.
Wow. There's one that I think was done. I'm not sure what their intentions were, but I don't think it turned out well. It's a Hallmark movie with Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Riding the Bus with My Sister.
Oh, okay.
And Rosie O'Donnell plays as I think probably considered an autistic woman.
Uh,
It was hard to watch.
Rosie plays an autistic woman.
Yes, called Riding the Bus with My Sister.
Yeah, it's always like, you know what? I feel like this is a good segue into talking more about authentic casting because you run into a chicken and the egg problem because ideally you would love to cast someone that autistic, you know what I mean? Who could play that, who could do that character. But the problem is then you're working with someone who is that autistic. Do you know what I mean? And this is not to say that uh there aren't those actors who should be cast. What I'm trying to say is that the film industry needs to catch up and provide communication and accommodations for these actors so that they can act. And that's the right way to do it. And I think if they did that, they would get more meaningful portrayals and better films. I think better films would come out of authentic casting, and I think and more opportunities given to these actors. Because I mean, people, there's kind of like a weird kind of logical fallacy that people like to throw out when you say like, "Oh, we don't need to build a ramp." Who out here needs a ramp? I don't see anyone in a wheelchair who needs a ramp, and I say, well, yeah, you don't see them because they're not here because there's no ramp. So, you know what I mean? Like, you think they don't exist, but because there isn't an easy avenue for them to exist. So, I think, simple accommodations like allowing more breaks but in shoots and being flexible with schedules and, having communication tailored a certain way and, just there's so many things, but yeah, the film industry's got to step up for years. They're working on it.
Well, and I think there's the element too of the star power ingredient. For example, you look at a movie like Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Now, if that movie didn't star Tom Hanks, would the film have been as successful and got, as big in the box office?
No, but and I guess that's I mean maybe I don't know. Yeah, maybe not. And that's why they can I mean like the guy in the surrogate, or not the surrogate. Oh yeah, the surrogate and My Left Foot. Those are big name actors.
My Left
Yeah,
Foot, yeah, with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis. Um, yeah, I think they probably wouldn't have been as good, but then then you just run into like, I guess, weighing the pros and cons, like, oh, is it better, is it the means to an end argument, you know? Well, I personally think the means are very important. And I think if all these films were made and nobody watched them because they didn't have Daniel Day-Lewis, then I would say, well, what's wrong with your marketing team? You know what I mean? Like, what, you gotta ride the coattails on one guy to get anyone to watch your movie? I don't know. That's my opinion. But who am I? I'm just a schmuck. I don't know how the film industry works.
Um, I don't want to keep you too long, and
You know.
there's another line in the movie we can maybe end on.
Hmm?
Is the whole world a garden?
The whole world of garden. When did they say that? Was that the end?
Towards the end of the movie, yeah.
Was that when she was narrating? Maybe? I
I
don't know.
think I think Mary says it like in the narration, maybe.
Yeah. Is the whole world a garden? It is for some people.
That's a good way to conclude. And do you want to say again? You have a comedy show
Oh,
coming
yeah.
up
Oh, yes, I'm recording my debut comedy album special at Alameda Comedy Club on April 5th and 6th. Go to Alameda Comedy Club. Look up the dates on April 5th and 6th on their website. I'm opening for Amy Silverberg. My name is not on the website. Just have some faith that I'm opening for Amy Silverberg. So come to my album taping. Gonna be an album taping. I got a record label who's interested. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good time. Yeah.
and if somebody wants to cast you, Jade, in a film or a TV series or a musical, what's the best way they could contact you besides contacting me and asking me?
I know. Well, I don't know if you are gonna put captions in your episode, or like not captions, but a little descriptor in your episode. But jadeterrio.com. You can hit me up there. I'm on Instagram at the Painted Jade.
The
What's
Painted Jade.
the Painted Jade?
All right. I'm going to thank you again for
All right.
talking so much about the secret garden, your
Thank
own
you.
life, all these deep, philosophical, fun life topics.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna I'm gonna stop recording now, and then we could catch up a little bit off the record as buddies.
yeah.
All right, here I go. Three, two, one. Thanks, Jade.